And it's about your capacity to end stress and in the process to rewire your brain for more joy in your work, for more peace in your life, for more love in your relationships, to put more spring into your step. All of those wonderful qualities, they are literally neurocircuits. And when they wire together, as nature intended, they generate an exponential gain in brain power that can propel you in the direction of sustaining a more successful, more intrinsically rewarding life. I mean, who doesn't want that? Unfortunately, for a lot of people, that's not the everyday experience that they enjoy at all. You know, 3 out of 4 of us struggle with stress from time to time. 1 out of 4 struggle with it every day to an extreme. 50% of the men, 40% of the women say that their stress level increased over the last 5 years. We're seeing more and more stress in kids and adolescents. And 91% of children say what stresses them the most is how stressed their parents have become. But when they do surveys of parents, upwards of 70% of parents are oblivious to the impact their level of stress is having at home. Well, I think it's indicative of how oblivious we are to the impact stress is having on us, personally, at a personal level. Statistically, people, I think everybody recognizes stress is bad for your health, very bad for your health. But surveys show that 80% of us aren't doing anything about it. They're not doing anything about it on any consistent basis. So that probably means you, at least 8 out of 10 of you here. So let me get stern with you at the outset. Don't stress, because good news is coming behind it. Stress is serious. Stress is life-threatening serious. It's no joke. Look up here at this slide. Chronic stress means that your stress response system is on full time. It's on full time, and it's dumping toxic stress hormones into your bloodstream. And when it's chronic, doing that on a chronic basis, it shrinks brain networks. Look at the slide on the right. There's a healthy set of neural networks. Cut it in half. It locks you into fight, or freeze. It locks you into emotional negativity. Switches your emotional set point to negative. That's because, evolution decided that if you were encountering an angry bear, loving kindness and peaceful affirmations weren't going to get you through that scrape. You needed to amp up all those negative emotions to deal with it. Well, your brain can't tell the difference between a real and present danger and one you've made up in your head, and that's what gets triggered, that neurological process. It impairs your immune system and lots of other systems in your body. It kills brain cells, and eventually it can kill you. If you add up all of the life-threatening stress-related diseases in America, from cardiovascular disease to cancer to immunodeficiencies to premature aging, you have the #1 killer of Americans right now. 100 years ago, it was viruses and bacteria and childbirth. Today, it's stress. So obviously, stress isn't something that you should someday do something about. You need to attend to it today. And hopefully this lecture will be the beginning of a process of moving you in that direction. There is a stress test that is in your handout on page 2. I don't want you to take it now, but I urge you at some point today that you take it. And what you do is, after you take that, check off the statements in that stress test that are true for you. I want you to read the results as if you were a clinician reading the results of somebody else. If you were the doctor and this was somebody else's assessment, and it'll give you a pretty good idea how big a problem stress is for you. So here's the good news. There is good news in all of this. If stress is a problem in your life, either episodically or chronically, It's because of the way genetics and a painful past wired your brain. That stress gene is turned up real high. The good news is you can turn it down, you can rewire your brain and quiet down that hyperactive stress response simple, and it's simpler than you might imagine. It's so simple that a lot of people say it can't be that simple. But before we go into how you do that, I want to conduct a poll of the group here. First question, show of hands. Do you think it's possible that you could become stress-free for good, once and for all? Say you could learn something in this hour that would eventually lead you to making that shift. Show of hands. Very few of you. Okay. Almost statistically inconsequential. Okay. Next question. Do you think a person can make a fundamental shift in attitude that changes the way they experience life? Everybody. Anybody? Nobody didn't raise their hand. Okay. Very typical. I've been doing this poll in workshops and webinars for a very long time, and that's typically what happens. Most people do not believe, vast majority of people do not believe stress-free for good is realistic or possible. But everybody believes that a shift in attitude that changes the way you experience life is totally possible. So here's the connection. Here's the point. There's a direct connection between your capacity to change your attitude and the brain's capacity to rewire, to extinguish stress reactions, and to expand that higher brain function that we just talked about. That capacity of the brain to do that is called neuroplasticity. Neuroplasticity, it's also called cortical remapping. Probably heard about it. It's on the front cover of Time and Newsweek and New York Times. It refers to the ability of the brain to change brain structure and brain chemistry, all in the response to you generating a new experience of life for yourself. So let's drill down into that. What does that mean? Let's take a closer look at that. Attitude and experience, your attitude and what it is you experience day to day, they're intertwined. They're almost indistinguishable. Attitude shapes experience. So how? Well, if you change your attitude from judgmental to compassionate, you experience people in a completely different way. From one second to the next. You change your attitude from pessimistic to optimistic, and you experience problems differently. They turn into challenges. You get excited about finding solutions to them, which you will never get to that place if you stay pessimistic. Change your attitude from worry and doubt to faith and trust, and you see a whole new, different world out there. Not one that threatens you, but one that invites you. You make the shift from chronically fearful to dynamically peaceful, and you literally end stress for as long as you do that. You know, biologically, no fear, no stress reactions. The stress response, what triggers the stress response system is fear. It's fear-driven. It's ignited by fear. So if every day, you start shifting your attitude in this direction, in a more positive direction, in a matter of weeks, your brain will begin to rewire. Stress reactions will begin to quiet down. Higher brain function will begin to amplify. And as higher brain function begins to amplify, you become more creative in the way you deal with your life.